Disabilities Issues and Updates on BCTV is supported by the Berks County Center for Independent Living, Abilities in Motion.
Good morning and welcome to Disabilities Issues and Updates. I am Teresa Faulkner, your host. You can email me at tfaulkner@abilitiesinmotion, all being one word, .org, or call me at 376-0010. My direct extension is 108. We would love to hear your input and your suggestions. Let's get started with our show. Today's guest is Shelly Hauser, who is an employee at Abilities in Motion. She is our Disabilities Resource Specialist. Welcome, Shelly.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Welcome, welcome. So glad to have you. Let's talk about your title. Tell us a little bit what that means and what you do at Abilities in Motion.
It's a fairly new position that we've created, and it was born out of the needs that we found in our community, basically. The Disability Resource Specialist, basically we work on networking with other nonprofit agencies. I was just at the Homeless Coalition with Salvation Army yesterday, and St. Joe's Hospital called me for a referral and information. United Way's been calling me. So I do a few things. I wear a few hats at AIM, basically. So I'm the resource specialist, so I'm supposed to know everything about every disability and the resources for it. We also run a LEAP program where we take in donations, walkers, canes, commodes, some hospital beds if they're in really good shape, and we clean them up and we loan them or we donate them out. We work with other agencies when they have a surplus of things. Last summer, we had like over 300 hospital beds that needed to be cleared out of a warehouse, and we were able to find homes for all of them and give out 35 of them here in the local community to people with disabilities to make their lives more independent and happier. So.
We also understand that you are a teacher, an educator, and so today you're going to be helping us to learn more about amputees and to know the fact that it's more than just the loss of a limb. Why don't you give us some basic terms about amputation?
Okay.
Basic terms. And that slide.
And so on that slide that you'll see is there's several different categories on there. So there's upper limb amputations and there's lower limb leg amputations. There's about 8,500 persons in the United States alone annually that have a limb loss for various reasons, which we'll talk about later. So on this slide, we'll see that there's an ankle disarticulation, and that's obviously, a cutoff at the ankle. There's an AE, which is at above the elbow, AK, which is above the knee. A BK is below the knee. A BE is below the elbow. And then there's a WD, which is your wrist articulation, kind of like your ankle disarticulation. A transmetatarsal amputation, that's when they cut through the arch of your foot to try and save as much of the foot as possible. So you're resting more on your heel. Then there's a hip disarticulation when you have the top crest of your hip socket, but not the ball and the socket itself. And then there's a hemipelvectomy, which is absolutely no hip structure whatsoever, which is what I am from birth. And then there's this shoulder disarticulation. Sometimes these elbow, wrist, and ankle disarticulations can be through the joint itself. So those are some basic terms that you may hear me later on in the show say AK or BK or WD. And so that's the appropriate language amongst us amputees.
And I think on our next slide, it kind of shows you more about the different spots and different things, levels of amputation.
Right. So I had put this together to kind of visually show people where these exactly are that I'm talking about. On the left side, you can see the hemipelvectomy is the very top, it's everything. And then the hip disartic is just the lower part that's missing. And then your above the knee is usually mid-thigh. Below the knee is usually about mid-shin. And that's so the prosthetist can get a socket on there correctly. So there's enough residual limb that's left or enough stump that's left to hold the socket onto onto the person's body. And there's different ways that a below or above the knee can attach theirs. Somebody that's a hip dysartic or a hemi will have to have a socket around their waistline. But every level poses its own unique challenges.
What are some of the causes of amputation? I think that's a third slide. What are
Yeah.
some of the causes of that?
There's a lot of various reasons, but these are like your top 10. Nationwide, it's usually diabetes. And it can be a hereditary thing, or it can be a dietary thing, or just an awful combination of both. Heart disease, poor circulation, because of not getting up and exercising correctly. Smoking is a big thing, which causes the poor circulation oftentimes. Medication can cause blood clots, and then they lose the circulation, and then they lose the toes, and so on and so forth. Cancer, a lot of hips and hemis are from cancer, loss. And trauma, things like motorcycle accidents or car accidents. I had a gentleman who was a patient of mine years ago who was playing football and jumped over one of those little wire trims along a garden bed, and it was broken, and he stepped into some wild animal poop, and it got infected, and he didn't think anything of it. It was Thanksgiving, and it got worse, and it got gangrene, and he lost his leg below the knee. So yeah.
Thank you. One of the things I was really thinking about with this childhood diabetes,
Yes.
and what do you think that will look like in years to come as far as younger people having amputations? You kind of think of it I kind of think of it in my mind as something when you get older, but with the whole diabetes and children with diabetes, young people with diabetes, it's really something that parents and persons should really take seriously, don't you think?
Absolutely. There's Camp No Limits, which wasn't around when I was a child so many years ago. But I did go to camp, and I did get out there and have a great time at church camp and things like that when I was a kid. But there are, at Camp No Limits, there's about 6 in the United States, and they are for just children with disabilities. People like a friend of mine, Cameron Clapp, who's a triple amputee. He goes and he teaches the kids, and they learn to run, they learn to bike, they switch out their little leg parts, and they learn new things, and they learn those cheetah running blades that look so cool. And they learn from each other, they learn to bake, sometimes without their prosthetics on, with their arms, so they learn to measure, and they learn, and they think outside the box, and they learn to be comfortable and proud of who they are. And that's a really great thing. Childhood cancer is another big thing.
Yes, absolutely.
That's a big thing.
Yes.
Sometimes when children have born with club feet and they're not corrected, sometimes later in life, I've seen on our closed Facebook pages, young people who later in life in their 20s and 30s decide to have a double amputation because their club feet basically leave them completely disabled, that they can't walk, and they don't want to be in a wheelchair. They want to be up and running and having a full independent life. So they choose amputation. So there's a lot of reasons, but there's also a lot of more resources for youth these days, and they think outside the boxes. And I must say, the colors they put on their prosthetics for these young kids are they're sparkly and they're bright, and they just are a fabulous way of expressing themselves in such a colorful, bright way, and it's a really wonderful thing to see.
In my research, I saw that there are universal reactions to amputation which are to be expected. Although individuals will vary as their experience will vary as they experience what they call the grieving process.
Yes.
The 6 typical stages of grief are denial, bargaining, anger, grief, sadness, and depression. Adjustment and adaptation and acceptance are a part of that too. Talk a
Absolutely.
little bit about that. Each person is different. Some people will experience all. Do you think everyone experience all, or does it depend on the person?
I think it really depends on the person. It does. Now, I'm a congenital hemipelvectomy, so I was born this way. So my experience is much different than somebody comes into being an amputee much differently. But these days, there are really great, right from the start, from day one. I was a peer amputee peer counselor. The Amputee Coalition of America is a great website that has great resources. They can go online, and family members can sign up to have their loved ones receive a phone call or a visit from a local amputee, and they just talk person to person, like, hey, I was in a car accident. Hey, so was I. And then they start to realize, A, they're not alone, and B, that they can see how that other person that's kind of a little more seasoned has already been there, done that, and what they can do. And they talk about what they can't do, but they feel less isolated. Some people need counseling. They need pastoral care. But in hospitals and rehabs, those things are also offered. As a peer counselor, I know I've called psych on a few patients that really were not at that place in their life to talk about shrinkers and prosthetics, and they just weren't ready for that. So I brought in psych, I brought a chaplain in, and let them do their job. So basically, in dealing with new amputees, sometimes it really just takes a village to kind of get that new amputee back to whatever their new normal is. But we need to let them decide what their new normal is and how they want to rewrite the rest of their life in that new chapter in their life.
I had a discussion with a new amputee, and they were saying to me that they're having difficulty with body image and self-esteem. Please give some insight on this.
In this day and age of Hollywood and body shaming, it is not an easy thing for anybody, any man or woman, even the youth these days of how Teen Vogue and stuff tells them how they should look. But there's only been one perfect human on this planet ever. So, and we are not it. So basically, there's a lot of closed Facebook pages. There's a lot of great websites and resources that I belong to, that my friends belong to. I mean, I have friends in Australia, Italy, Canada, and all over the world that I just adore, and they are my other family. My regular able-bodied family, my husband, my children, my mom, my grandparents, they love me dearly, but it's just not the same. And so I rely on learning and teaching new amputees, and we kind of talk about the odd things, but we have to be proud of who we are. And I think the Paralympics being shown in the last several years and seeing other amputees and persons with disabilities on billboards for like Moss Rehab and seeing them on TV for Speechless and all these great things, it's kind of getting us out there, and it's helping to educate the able-bodied community that we're here, we've been here for a long time, and we're really not going anywhere, so that the able-bodied community really needs to broaden their views and their knowledge of who we are. And we're really quite funny, we're talented, and we have jobs, we have children, and we can do anything we want, but we have to believe in ourselves. And sometimes new amputees need to have that uncomfortable conversation with their families. And I've often told new amputees visiting with them, did you have the conversation yet, the ugly conversation? Because the new amputee sitting in the bed, a little confused and out of their element, not knowing what their next step's going to be in their new chapter, and the family standing there waiting for this new amputee to guide them through and say, this is how I feel. This is what I want for my new life, and this is what I don't want for my new life. I don't want you pitying me. I don't want you pushing my wheelchair. I want to be up and running. I want to run the Boston Marathon. The Boston Marathon was just there, and so many of the persons that unfortunately became amputees just a few years ago, 5 years ago, they're back at it, and they're stronger and they're better than ever because of it. So it's all about that initial support that a new amputee gets right from the start. And the sooner they get that support and those resources and that bonding with other amputees, they go, okay, I can do this. I've got this. And this is going to be fun.
You brought up a key point when you were talking about a support group. You talked about, it sounds as though you have an army of friends and you have family. You have good healthcare providers that are assisting you with that process. I'm going to say a word, prosthesis.
Yes.
Which means artificial body part.
Yes.
What clinician takes care of prosthesis?
Yeah, it's a tough word. It's prosthetist.
Okay.
Don't ask me to spell it. I'll mess it up. But it's a specialized person and different prosthetists have different abilities and centers of knowledge. So a hip or a hemipelvectomy like me can't just go to a doctor that specializes in more of a BK or an AK or transmetatarsal. I'm missing all three of my joints. So I have more balance issues. I have more gait issues. I have, more scoliosis issues. And I need to care for the joints that I do have in my residual limb. And amputees need to realize that. You have to care for your body, your sound side, the parts that you do still have on your other side. They're going to be challenged more. They're going to be worked over harder. So you have to be kind to yourself and be patient with yourself as a new amputee or as a seasoned amputee that may be getting older. I have my own challenges, but different prosthetists have different abilities of what they can do. AKs and BKs, above and below the knees, as I've said, are the most common. And then you get into your hips and your hemis and other specialized, bilateral amputees, triple amputees, and they have other energy expelling problems and other balance issues. So you have to find what's right for you. And any good amputee will not say to a new amputee, don't go to this one, or definitely go to that prosthetist. It's a very private decision that every amputee needs to make for themselves.
Wonderful, wonderful. I think it's very good, and I want to say thank you again for being able to share your story, your experience. There's a misconception out there that says amputees can't swim, they can't bike, they can't snowboard, they can't ski, they can't even dance anymore. But I think we have some pictures, and we're going to prove them wrong. You can speak to this experience.
I can.
Why don't you do that? Why don't you speak to the experience, and we're going to see some pictures of you, and we thank you for sharing.
Yeah. So this is an oldie or a goodie. This is, I think I'm about 2 or 3 years old here, probably with my favorite Barbie. But my first prosthetic I got from Shriners Hospital in Philly when I was about 6 months old. You can see this prosthetic right here doesn't have a knee on it, but it has a strap that probably went around my waist at that age. My left knee is dirty as anything from a lot of crawling, but I was a very happy child.
I guess we could say, Shelley, you've come a long way. We've come a long way. I've
come a long way, baby. As Lady Gaga says, baby, I was born this way, and I love her for that thought. So it's made me who I am. I've grown to be very tenacious. I think, as my mother can attest to, but it's made me stronger, and I don't know the word no very often, and I don't speak it very well.
Yeah. Let's go to our next one. Let's see
what's the next picture here. Okay, so I received this bicycle from I Am Able here in Reading, so thanks to Chris Kaeg for that, and his team. So one of my goals, after I turned 13, I couldn't balance my bicycle anymore after the training wheels came off. So until I was well into my 30s, I wasn't able to really ride a bike with my kids. So this is my son, Christopher, and this is a day we were out on my bike last summer. And it's very liberating, and I'm very proud to be able to go. We've gone from Oaks down the Valley Forge Trail all the way to Conshohocken and back, which is about, I think, 27 miles. And I did the whole thing with my kids, and it was just one of the best days I had ever had. Last summer.
Wonderful.
So, yeah.
So riding a bike,
getting back to it. Yeah.
Our next photo.
Here I am on another day, out and about. You'll see that I'm really missing all of my leg there, but just in the driveway, ready to take off and go. So for me, safety is a concern when I'm sitting that low. So Chris Kaeg's team has advised me to have that orange flag out there. I actually attached a purple and green swirly kite tail off of it, so when I bike, there's another 5 feet of purple and lime green going behind me up high so people can really see me when they're driving.
Okay. Next photo.
Me skiing.
Wait a minute. A misconception says you can't ski.
Oh, but I can. I have a fella in Germany, Naya, who's learning to ski, and I sent him some pictures and videos of me skiing here in America. And Naya says that this is very encouraging to him over in Germany, he's learning. So I started through the Jack Frost program when I was 13. I've been skiing 35 years now. This is called 3-tracking. So it's one ski, and then it's 2 outriggers that help me to balance. And I can also push off on them when I release the poles. They have teeth on the bottom that I can push off. So besides having children, I took a little bit of a hiatus, but I've been back at it. I was out again at Bear Creek this winter tearing it up. So it's been great.
Very good, very good. Our next photo.
So here you can see my ski poles that are up. There's teeth on the bottom, and then I can push off. So when it's a hill or it's flat space, or I need to get started, that's my push off. So if you ever go to Paralympics.org or TeamUSA.org, you can call up other Winter Olympics and see other Paralympians sit ski. So it's like a chair bucket on a single ski like that with shorter outriggers, and they ski, and man, they fly down that hill 50, 60 miles an hour with no fear. It's amazing. It's very encouraging and humbling to watch other skiers and their abilities to do this.
Wonderful, wonderful. We appreciate you sharing your photos, but I want to give you an opportunity to give your information, contact information, so that persons, if they want to talk to you, if they want to share their stories, where can they get in touch with you?
Okay. So I'm at Abilities in Motion with Teresa. They can always reach me at the main office number, which is 610-376-0010, extension 142. I'm there pretty much every day of the week. I do get out and teach the students on the autism spectrum, so sometimes I'm not there. But if an agency needs to connect with me to come and visit somebody in the local area, please do so. If you have a family member that you have concerns with that's going through this new process, give me a call. There are Facebook pages. There are support groups in the area. There's material and education. There are peer amputees that are maybe more similar to your loved one's story that I can connect you with. And there's lots of great resources in the local area. We are in 37 counties, so it doesn't just have to be Berks County. I live in Montgomery County myself. And so there's a lot of information out there, but we need to know, and we need to share that knowledge together.
Shelley, again, I want to thank you for being
Thank
my
you.
guest today and sharing your personal story. I'm sure you have encouraged a lot of persons that might be dealing with this situation and these issues. Please, if you're viewing our show today, please don't hesitate to call if you have any additional questions or concerns. Have a wonderful day and enjoy your day. Thank you again, Shelley, for coming.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Disabilities Issues and Updates on BCTV is supported by the Berks County Center for Independent Living, Abilities in Motion.